That's my buddy too.
Welcome everybody
Some of them
to
last
the
a week.
January
This one
7th
lasted a
Budget
day.
Committee meeting.
Some lasted.
And I will call the meeting to order at 6:33 PM. Roll call, Maxanne Dobson, here. Sam Cafiso.
Here.
Dennis Heffernan.
Here.
Lori Millette.
Here.
Jay DeRoche.
Here.
Katie Ingalls.
Here.
Peter Bracci.
Here.
Bob Hamilton.
Here.
Greg Talon.
Here.
And Greg Colby, Finance Director, is here. Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't see anyone here for budget-related public comment. So we'll move on to our first item is on page 34 in our long budget that we have is where we'll find the landfill solid waste budget. And I wanted to just bring that up for discussion. I sent an email out to everybody answering the questions that were still on the table. So if everybody had time to review that information, we can vote on this budget. Did anyone have any questions on the information that was sent? Pete?
Is this on the landfill?
Yeah.
What page?
Did you read the email with the information that I got about, okay. So we're gonna vote on this budget right now. Pete?
I'd like to make a motion to increase the landfill budget by $6,500,
Is there,
basically because of the reducing the manpower from 2 to 1.
is there,
Second.
okay, Sam seconds, discussion? Yeah, Jay?
Maybe Greg can answer this. How does that affect the services to the town? Is that gonna change the schedule of when the landfill is open?
Either, the way I look at it, either Dan Garlington will have to determine, is there a way to do this with one operator? And if he can't, he basically would not open the landfill.
Done.
Is there a possibility that hours could be flexed? Like on a Wednesday when the landfill is open? Could employees come in at, say, 12 o'clock? No?
There's a CBA that governs the employees of the highway department, and there are
Was
set
my next
hours that they
question.
work, so that
Okay.
wouldn't be, it would be up to the Board of Selectmen and the town manager to work with the funds that are available. If they feel that it's not prudent to run it with one person, they could reduce the hours and still run it with two. Because again, it's been discussed, you're trying to keep hazardous waste and other things from getting dumped there that could provide a much bigger cost to the town to have to dispose. That's the reason, for the two people.
Bob?
I compared what you sent out, which is the town permit for the landfill. We call it a landfill, but it's really just bringing in brush, bringing in leaves, some metal. The only thing that's on that for recycling is non-ferrous metal, which is gold, silver, aluminum, bronze, brass, which I don't think we're collecting very much of. Everything else is just solid waste, primarily brush. When we compare it to Atkinson, they're collecting a lot of collectibles, a lot of recyclables. They're collecting cardboard and paper. They're collecting plastic, glass, that type of thing. Plus, they're collecting a lot of the things that we collect on twice a year for the special
For the
hazardous waste. They're collecting ongoing a lot of those things, such as incandescent, and fluorescent tubes and batteries and things like that. So, and they're doing it with one person. So their population is very similar to ours. within 500 people. So there's no reason why we can't do that also with one person, because we're not collecting all of those other things. And like Sam mentioned last week, or our last meeting, if somebody drops off a TV and the person there manning it doesn't notice that, it's not going to cost $75, which we're paying to man that facility to get rid of that. So my vote would definitely be to recommend one person to see what's going on, and also recommend that we try to man that with somebody that's not working overtime. Thank you.
We visited this a couple times, I think last year and the year before, and we started to try to make some recommendation about hours, and like Greg Colby had mentioned, there are certain restrictions due to union rules with how they work down there. But the biggest stickler was that we were told flat out by the highway department supervisor that the DES required 2 people to be there. So we found that not to be true. Not to be true.
Did
That's
you
not
read
what
the-
he said.
Did you read the email?
No, what he said when he was here, the highway supervisor, was that they choose to have 2 people there for the reasons that Greg had
Right,
stated.
that's what he said
so
the last time he
ways,
was here.
But not that
Yeah,
it's
not
not
the year before.
recommended that 2 people be there. That was a town policy, or a highway department policy.
Yes, like I
that they
said,
have.
when I first started speaking, I
Right.
said, last year and/or the year before.
Okay.
We looked into this, and we were told that it was mandated that 2 people had to be there. So that's why we hadn't changed things in the past.
Right.
And I do remember him stating things differently. I can't put words in his mouth the last time he was here. I believe you if you said he said differently. But
Yes, Pete.
And I agree with you, Sam, and in the interest of reducing the budget, if we can man the dump with one person and do a decent job, I think that would be the way to go. And, you know, when you think we're in the budget committee, then, you know, one of the things is to make a prudent use of the money. Using 2 people is probably a little bit overkill, I would
Yeah,
think.
and if I can
Yeah.
turn that, and like Greg Colby said, we can't tell them how to do their job. We can give them a certain amount of money to do a job, and it's up to them to figure out how to do it. We can't say 1 person, 2 people, 10 people, 1 day, 2 day, 5 days. We can either or cannot work with the money that's on that line.
What is, so we had this issue, I don't know if you were here, it wasn't in regards to this, it was another position within the town, and I can't remember what it was. And we tried to cut something, and we got in trouble with the collective bargain. Do you recall that at all, Sam?
Trying to think about it, and
I don't know if there was anybody
remember
else
it.
who could remember, but as far as the collective bargain goes with this, it's more around the hours that they can work. Greg Colby?
Yeah,
There's nothing around how many people need to be there, it's the hours that they can work.
there's scheduled hours, especially in the summertime. They work 4 10-hour days,
Okay.
so.
and then the landfill is manned on overtime on Wednesday nights and on Saturday.
Correct.
I believe Francine was the chair at the time that we suggested that some person be moved to a schedule to not work a day during the week and work a Saturday, and then we ran into exactly what
Exactly.
Greg just said. It
Yeah.
had been worked into their agreement on the days
Yeah.
and the hours they worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob.
The other comment that I'd like to make is that we refer to this as the landfill, but it's not. The landfill is what's capped. And I think the town should seriously consider looking for another name for it.
I would see moving it would be a better idea. It is at the old landfill, but it's a mud hole and it's always
Correct.
problems.
Correct.
Maybe
Even,
that's something they can do with the new facility.
right, even the permit says that it's adjacent to the landfill. So it's not really the landfill that we're referring to. And I think it's very confusing to the public.
Well,
That's not our job, but I just wanted to throw that out.
so if I understand correctly, we're giving them a set amount of money and they need to work with it. But ultimately, if it doesn't work, they will find funding elsewhere to make it.
not
Well,
necess-
if there's extra money.
If they can, if you're correct, if they have some other money that they can take out of their budget somewhere else. If they don't, it removes that service.
But what I'm going for is if we give them the money to budget for one person.
Right.
And it goes off without a hitch. I mean, we've never tried this before.
No, what I'm saying is if Dan makes the decision, no, we're not gonna do it with one, it's not prudent, people are dropping gallons of oil when we're not looking. If that is the case, and it's his decision, no, we can't do this safely, then he has the right to say, then we're gonna just close the landfill.
Yeah, Greg.
It's a policy decision by the board. It's not Dan's decision. Because when Dan brings to the board a set schedule of hours and when they want to open, if you recall about a month ago, with the nice weather, Dan came to the board and asked permission of the board to open for another weekend or whatever it was. So it is a policy decision by the Board of Selectmen. They're the ones that make that decision.
We approve the schedule that he wants, but he's providing that schedule based on 2 people working at the landfill. So before we can approve something, he has to come forward and say, this is what I can man, or this is what I can do. I really thought that we were going to contact Dan and be able to either have him here or have him be able to answer your questions, Max, to be able to come back with can you do this with one? But unfortunately, circumstances prevented that.
Bob.
So we're going to have to kind of wait and see. If we pass this, we'll have to kind of wait and see what Dan decides.
I just want to point out that the Board of Selectmen have the authority to do whatever they want with our budget, once it's passed by the voters. For example, this past year, we did not budget for a statistical update. The Board of Selectmen decided to spend the money, $15,000 for a statistical update. So they have that authority to do that. So whether they choose to close the landfill, or whatever we call it, or to limit the hours, or just go with one person, it's really up to them. It's not up to us.
Bob, do you know if that was done with additional monies taken from somewhere else?
was.
Or was it moved within the bottom line, within the budget that was approved?
It had to be moved within the bottom line because we did not budget for a statistical update.
I understood it to be the same way, that it being a bottom line budget
Correct.
basis, that with the
They could
authority
take
of the
it from
Board of
someplace
Selectmen,
else.
monies could be moved from budget,
And that occurs
line to
when,
line within the budget.
that occurs when the budget is not totally spent. If we have overestimated something, or something cannot be done.
Something was
because of
budgeted for.
date or whatever, and that's what creates that,
We're
What do I
getting off
call
track.
that?
We're not speaking to the motion.
No,
yeah.
so if
And Greg,
this- yeah,
that has notoriously been at least $300,000 that we've had extra money in the budget. Is that correct? The
yeah, we're just
unassigned
gonna,
fund balance?
we're gonna call for a vote on this issue so we can move on.
Just ask a
Yeah.
quick. So clarify for me, you need a certified person.
Correct.
Correct. If there are 2 people there, do they both have to be certified?
No,
No, as I read it, no.
So if it was a certified person,
There's a caveat there, that there can be someone else there, but they cannot touch anything.
right, so
This
they could
person up at the
monitor.
gate-
So if it was a seasonal, a seasonal worker who
Right.
isn't certified.
Right, the person
So they
cannot
could
push material with a front-end loader, they cannot take things out of people's car, they cannot touch anything. If
Okay.
they had, let's just say, for example, the person working the gate, if one person was at the gate and one person was down at the pile, maybe the person at the gate could be the non-certified and they just check residency or whatnot.
Right.
But the person handling the material must be certified.
Is the seasonal person part of the collective bargaining?
The seasonal person, as I understood it, has applied for the permit already, as was explained to us when the
Okay.
highway department supervisor was here.
Okay.
And per the DES rules, once you apply for your certification,
Yeah.
you are technically certified, working under someone else's certification until you hold your own.
But the cost doesn't have nothing to do with the certification. It's the cost of a person.
right,
Correct.
$75.
Highway department. So it's really kind of it's really unrelated because whether they are certified or not certified, we're not saving any money. We're paying the same amount of money.
Pete, you had your hand up.
That's the answer.
Bob.
I just, it kind of came to mind that if we have a less expensive person at the gate, they're not only checking people in, but they're looking at what they're dropping off. They're going to be able to determine whether there's a TV or something that should not be dropped off at the landfill. So I think that's I just wanted to throw that out. Doesn't have to be a certified person, but a valuable person.
Okay, so I'll call for a vote. All those,
What-
oh,
You have to
Yeah, let's.
get a number. He didn't,
number. Yeah,
you
we
said
didn't,
65.
but he didn't
but
give
we
us a
didn't get a
number
bottom line.
to change the number.
71,500, Pete.
Yep, 71,500.
Is the total
Would be the
amount.
new number?
Yeah.
Right.
So the motion is to reduce the bottom line solid waste disposal landfill budget to 71.5. And Sam seconded it. Okay.
Can I ask the question? Pete, was that your intent when you first started talking? I thought you were specifically wanting to remove a person from that first line item. The first line that says $13,000, and we're reducing it by
Well, if we
6,500?
reduce that by one person, then I'd want to reduce the entire budget by $6,500.
Well, obviously, right, but basically it's that line that's getting reduced.
Yes.
Correct.
And we should retain that.
I thought we just give
I
the
think
bottom
it's the bottom line.
Give bottom
Just
line
the
of the
bottom line.
department.
I mean, the
Yeah.
question's going to
Because it
be,
could come
where are
out
you
of the
taking the money from? We're taking it from that line.
Well, we have that information for public hearing.
Okay,
And I will
good.
make notes
Okay.
about what we reduced on public
out to
hearing, but we're just
71,500.
approving the
That's fine.
bottom line budget. Okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? 3. Abstain, 0. So motion carries 6-3-0. Okay. So that was the last budget I had on my list that we needed to finalize.
Can we bring up other budgets?
If that's your will, yes.
Could we look at the assessment budget? Page 6. Get there.
Page what?
6.
Page 6. I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around this budget. If I'm looking at this correctly as I was going over everything, we're looking at an increase in this budget of $196,331. And I'm just not satisfied that we are going to have that much of a savings if we do what we're talking about as far as the assessing. So I guess I just wanted to put it out there for discussion and get some input from Greg, if we can, of what we're looking at here, and kind of go from there.
So are you saying it's budgeted for, it's
So-
over budgeted?
I think it's over budgeted, because if you look at, you're going from 127, 135 up to 323, 466.
And what did you say that figure was, that it was?
I have it as, and I could be off, 196, 331 increase.
That's not the values
Values
anew added to it. Is that why it went up? But I thought that was 175. Not, that number could have changed based
The
on,
number could have changed. The two, we have two responses from the RFP, and they're very, very close, and they're somewhere in the vicinity of 140,000. But we had a ballpark figure because we had no idea what they were going to be coming out with.
Greg, is that the values anew difference? Is that is what it is?
Yes.
The entire thing?
The entire, yeah.
I would say yes at this point.
Okay. Bob and then Lori.
When we reviewed assessing budget, Francine was here, and she had a figure for the values anew that was figured into this line item. I don't remember what it was, I didn't write it down apparently, but is it within that ballpark?
I believe
It is,
so.
okay, so,
Lori?
I was just going to add that we did values anew in 2016, and if you look back on that, that was 121. So I don't know how many years later, I'm sure the price has gone up, but I know you just got those RFPs, so I don't know. You didn't discuss them, what was in them.
No, we were going to be discussing them, but since there was only 3 selectmen at the meeting, we decided that it was an important decision that we should have all of the selectmen present.
So Dennis, would you be comfortable with revoting this next week before the public hearing, once we found out about the RFPs?
I would, I think, yeah, I think we need to, because if, am I looking at this correctly, that's at 290?
What's 290?
The,
95, yeah.
Requested.
the requested, yeah, 290, yeah. So I would like to take a look at, I think that number's quite high myself.
Oh, just the,
That's fair.
okay, so, yeah, I'll put that on.
So can we
for-
table that and try to get an answer for that next week?
Yeah, make
before
sure we
the
have that
public hearing?
information.
Yep.
Okay.
So I guess if we, it's, the request is 290, but if it's in the ballpark of 196 or 170, there is some type of discrepancy there, I guess.
Yeah, we even heard a number of 14, I don't know, so let's say
Yeah.
it's at 180 even, I mean,
Yeah, I think there's in this, there's the contract for the assessor, and then separate from
There's
that,
Oh,
is
okay,
the
so it's a
RFP is
Yeah.
for the values anew.
So it's a
Okay.
two-part
So there's
in
the
one
two-part,
line.
right?
We only got one
Yeah.
part so far.
Okay.
okay.
So do you think we'll have that information by January 14th?
Well, I know we'll have a decision by then.
Okay.
Definitely have a decision by then. But Francine should be back by that time as well.
Okay.
So we'll have a little bit better, more clarity to be able to provide. Then you can revisit this number if necessary.
Okay.
All right, that's fair, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. So now we're moving on to the warrant articles, and Greg was nice enough to put, oh, Bob, did you have?
I was just curious as to what the bottom line budget would be now with this last change.
Including the library, looks, I'm gonna say 9,726,991.
Would you give me that again, please?
9,726,991.
Thank you. That's what would be on the ballot if nothing changes at this point.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Older.
Yeah.
So Greg was nice enough to come in with the most updated version, and I think aside from the language changing, there's also the landfill added to this one.
And may I make a point?
Yes,
Try to make this more consistent was an idea that was floated by Sam. So I appreciate Sam's interest in this. And so what we have is all money warrants will now have a total appropriation line. And then where we're talking about a specific fund, we'll have the balance for the fund as well.
For anything that has a monetary amount.
Right.
So since this is my first time doing it, I assume we just make a motion for the warrant article, and then the tally is however we vote.
And it would be just for the money ones.
Correct.
Yep.
Motion to recommend,
Recommend.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And we don't do it, the budget.
And then do we, yeah, we wait on
Right,
the
we'll wait on the
operating.
budget.
Okay.
Because we
sure.
got to vote on each budget, right, next week?
Yeah,
Isn't that
we'll
the
go
way
down the
right
summary
down?
sheet.
Case
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Jay?
Greg, is there any idea on what the default budget number is at this
I
point?
had asked.
No.
Okay, so we'll skip the operating budget, general fund, so move on to the water department. Is there a motion to recommend the water department budget?
I'll make a motion to recommend the 2020 operating budget for the water department in the amount of $157,444.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So 900. Okay,
Can I just,
oh, yeah,
has the selectmen voted on these?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
the,
where you see the numbers there, there is
There's some
2
tallies
new
there.
warrants that were voted on last night, and there was only 3 selectmen, so it was 300, and that was the reason why it was.
All right, yeah, all right, I see them down there. Thank you.
yep. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have discussion on the water department budget. Does anyone want to discuss it?
Water's good.
All right. Public Works Garage, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to recommend the Public Works Facility Garage Phase 3 for the amount of $350,000.
Is there a second? Katie? Discussion?
Any idea how much of a, we'll see a significant savings, right, in salt delivery, I would think, amount we can get, as opposed to what we're currently?
We haven't got a number, but that is one of the
Goals.
goals by putting a big facility up would be to be able to buy all the salt at one time and during the summer when the rate is cheaper.
And just one additional item that we're being proactive to the future DES regulations around salt. Basically, there are a lot of salt sheds that are open to the weather, and DES is coming down with regulations to have all salt undercover. So by building this new, we'll keep our salt covered.
The covered law has been for probably about 10 years, but they are getting stricter
Right.
on how it's contained.
Pete?
I've got a couple of things about that, Greg. I think it's, we've been so proactive that we're spending ourselves into oblivion. With the taxes going up, we have to take some time, pull back the reins a little bit. And when I look at the salt shed and the solar panels, didn't we stress the highway garage for solar panels? Why are we putting solar panels on the salt shed?
Because of the pitch of the roof. The pitch of the roof of the.
So we wasted the money on the highway garage.
No.
Yes, we did.
We didn't waste any money. How did we waste money?
I can speak to it actually because I'm on the, I've been working on the
Okay.
solar project from the Energy
Please do.
Committee. And originally speaking with a company about solar panels, they wanted to put the panels on the highway garage. And Mark had it outfitted in the event that we do that in the future. It doesn't have to have a perfect pitch. They can move these mounts so they're facing the sun properly. So it would still be a savings if we did it on the highway garage. But with that being said, they wanted to put solar panels on the salt shed to make sure that it was a viable project to move forward. So they're kind of using this as an experiment because it's not a huge investment. It's just a few panels over covering the whole thing.
I was on the Highway Garage Committee from the beginning. Served the first year when a lot of decisions were made, when we went around and looked at other garages in the area and so on. We made a point of making sure, when the fellow was here making his presentation for the building we initially selected, that the extra money was put into the supporting of that roof to support solar panels. So there was extra money spent in order to build that garage to support solar panels.
So it
No
doesn't-
question
So
about
it
it.
doesn't preclude it from additional solar panels going up there at a later date.
Correct.
Correct. We can put solar panels on that highway garage roof.
And that would provide the savings to the town.
Correct. because I guess from what I was explained from the solar panel company, we're not gonna get a huge return on energy. We might be able to power the garage from it, but it's not gonna feed back into the whole net metering process. But a bigger, even the safety complex, all of that stuff is where the real savings comes in.
Thank you.
I can echo what Bob said, and that's correct. How much money extra it costs, I don't know, but I remember it was specifically stated to make sure that the roof trusses were designed to hold the weight of solar panels. I was on the committee from the formation, and I think we did a really good job on the garage, getting together and getting ideas together and getting the garage built as like the safety complex with the involvement of all the committees. I personally would have liked to seen it continue with the salt shed, but I don't know if the committee leadership just fell apart or what, but I really would have liked to see some alternatives or some alternative prices on buildings. We really never got anything to compare. We were just told that this is what we're building and this is what it's gonna cost. We've never really said, well, we can do this, it will cost this much less, but it only lasts this long, different types of buildings. I know Hampstead just put up a big hoop house, like the Mass DOT puts up, the big white hoop houses. I'm not saying we're not getting a lot for our money, but I didn't see any options. I would have liked to see some options. I'd like to see that committee be a little more involved, and we didn't.
I've been on the budget committee now for 4 years. We have been extremely proactive in everything that we've done, starting with the safety complex, rolling right into the highway garage. We're fixing bridges. During that period of time, 2 bridges in town, one on Garden Road and the one on Westville Road this year. We're fixing drainage problems. We're very proactive, and our tax bills are showing it. December, this past year, we had a historical increase in taxes. We've never seen tax increases the way. We have to start tightening our belts and look at these things a little bit more carefully. I personally know seniors, and I know a lot of you also know seniors that are retired and have seen a $1,500 increase in their tax bill in December. And that's going to reflect on their mid-year tax bill next June, another $1,500 plus. And I think we have to pull in our belts a little bit and not be so proactive. It's nice to have a town where we're proactive, we're out on top of everything. We're not gonna wait for the DRA to tell us we have to fix our landfill. We're gonna fix it. Well, we got some pools of water over there where it's sunk. I got them in my yard. I fill them in with dirt. And I just think we've gone too far. And my tax bill certainly reflects that, and I know that a lot of the listeners out there do also. And I think that we just have to slow down a little bit, as Peter's mentioned, and not be so proactive. Maybe we need to wait another year for the salt shed.
That was gonna
Maybe
be,
we need to look at it a little bit more carefully and bring down the cost.
that was gonna be my next question. So if this were not to pass, where it's phase 3, does that mean it's off the table, or they can then do something next year?
Start planning for it next year.
Yeah.
But we're not asking the taxpayers for an additional $350. It's already been appropriated over the years, so we're not asking for more.
Well, because they technically already paid for it.
Right.
However, that money that they're using, Jay, could go to lowering our tax rate for next year, and if we spend $350,000, we don't have that ability to lower the tax rate.
Oh, I agree with you.
That's
So we are spending.
Up to the
Yeah,
board of
but-
selectmen to appropriate that.
Wait a minute, it's not that it
offset-
hasn't been appropriate.
To offset the taxes. They haven't done that last year. They didn't do that.
Because we spent too much money, we've
We
been
spent too
proactive.
much money.
So it's up to the Board of Selectmen to decide how they want to use that
How they
money.
want to offset the tax rate.
Well, they can do it, but it's up to the budget committee to at least give them some input. and some ideas of what we're doing.
Any more discussion? Oh, what?
Well,
Oh.
I guess so who is the chair of the highway?
Steve, I thought was.
Okay, so Steve resigned, so who's the vice? You?
No.
No?
When's the last time they met?
It's been a while.
I don't think there was one.
I haven't had a meeting. I've been on the committee too. I haven't had a meeting in over a year.
Who's calling who's scheduling the meetings? Or who should be scheduling the meetings?
The chair.
The chair.
Chair.
And the chair was Steve.
Steve.
Remember that?
Yeah. Bob,
So far, excuse me, so far we've appropriated $950,000, I believe, for the highway garage. Has all of that money been spent?
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yep.
No.
We're still working on the finishing touches, and we haven't spent the whole amount. We're still paying some bills to some contractors when they're finishing the work up. So we're not there yet. But,
You anticipate that it will?
oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I only say absolutely because what you need to realize is that the building is 10,000 square feet. And if you look up what the cost is to build a public works garage, the cost per square foot ranges between $175 and $250 per square foot. What you have there is a 10,000 square foot building that we built for $95 a square foot. So we're going to spend all of the $950, but you're getting a building that's worth twice that in square footage and then some. But I just walked in with the previous discussion about the 350, so I didn't know if you had any questions about the proposed salt shed building, the 350.
We didn't,
Oh, okay.
I mentioned.
There was a comment that, can we afford to be this proactive and build the salt shed this year versus waiting till next year?
Yeah. So I can just tell you that, there's two theories. One is to get in front of the projects and build them sooner than later. Cost of construction goes up every year, as you know, price of materials and so forth. But the real issue is that if you've been up at the landfill anytime recently, you'll see that lean-to is really leaning. And it only holds X amount of salt under it, and it's open to the weather. So they have to actually order salt while they're out plowing, because they're using the stuff that they have under a roof, and then they're calling as they're plowing to have more delivered, and you're paying a premium price during the winter, because you can, if you buy your salt and your sand in the off-season, you can have it delivered and stored inside, and, they're delivering it during the summer months when the rates are lower, because they do make the rates go up higher in the winter and so forth.
So would the salt shed, if it was to be built, be ready for next winter?
That would be my plan, is for that to be ready for next year. So it'd be a tight schedule, because if you look at the calendar and say the warrant article was successful in March at the ballot, and immediately I put out the RFPs for the people for the building, and you give 30 days or 60, 45 days, you're already into the end of April, beginning of May, and then you award the contract and perform your due diligence, and, you're another 15 days, maybe 30 days, and then you got to get the contractor to put the concrete in the ground, and you got to order your building, because I've done this before. So, time gets pushed out. The last time we ordered the building, they said, 8 to 10 weeks for the steel. Well, it turned out to be more like, 15 weeks, because there was a backup in line for the steel. So I don't know what that looks like now. So my point is that even with the best laid intentions of starting construction as soon as possible after town meeting, and then you're building, and then you got the contractors, and you got the people, and, it's going to be, the intent would be to get it done before the snow flies, but
one of the problems we're gonna be up against is I don't know that we're gonna be able to purchase that salt to save the money if we don't actually have the building built to put the salt in by the time you're finishing the building. If you're finishing it around November, it's gonna be tight. What I find with this building here and several other projects that I'm involved with is that the scheduling contractors is very difficult. They are so busy that, you're trying to get them there, and they'll give you a date, but it always changes. It's just, that's been my number one challenge over here at the highway garages, is to get the contractors in, and then trying to get them in so that one contractor is not in the way of the other contractor. It's been very, very difficult, and if you know that with contractors out there, they're just that busy.
Question?
Yep.
Oh, go ahead.
Please.
Mark, what is the cost of salt in the summer versus the cost of salt in the winter?
I don't have that information,
Then how can we say that we're gonna save a whole bunch of money if we don't have that information?
because that's a fact that the salt is cheaper in the summer than it is in the winter.
If we're gonna get a salt shed and it's gonna be a double the size that we have now,
Yeah.
Okay, let's say it's 100 tons. Let's say we can
It's
put
1,500 tons is the new building. That's
But
what's
the new
projected.
building's 100 tons, the old building's 50.
Yeah.
And you say that when the people are salting, they're calling for more salt, so that we're using 50 tons of salt, and then we fill it up with 50 tons. So in the new building that's gonna have 100 tons, when we use 50 tons, we still got 50 tons left. When are we gonna start calling for,
Not, the 1,500 tons would last you for a whole season.
Okay.
So you would only fill it during the summer.
okay, so then the
Goes down.
salt is gonna go down to 25 tons, and then the new salt is gonna go on top of that. Or we're gonna move it or put new salt on the bottom. What I'm saying is, the old salt is gonna be there forever, because you're just keeping dumping salt on top of it. And how do we save money if we're just dumping new salt on top of the old salt? I don't see that. I don't see how it works. In other words, you have to empty that new building completely and then put new salt in to save money.
If I had a pile of loom and I was gonna keep on adding to my pile of loom, I don't have to get to the bottom of the loom pile to get to that loom, because it's gonna go bad. I mean, salt is salt. So whether
The
they
salt
get,
is gonna be a hard lump in about 5 years, because we haven't got to it.
I don't know that to be true, but
The way I understood it, Mark, please correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know the buying habits of the town. The way I understood it is the town pre-buys, you commit. Everyone I ever worked for with salt, you pre-bought, you called Morton, you called whoever you called, and you say, the town of Plaistow wants to commit to 1,500 tons, give me a price. And they said, when are you gonna take it? If you took it all in June, you got X price. If you're gonna take it once a week or once a month all winter, you got X price, but you commit to a price in the summertime or any time of year for that matter, from a buyer you shop. And then when is it paid for? You don't pay for the salt each time a truck delivers it, am I correct? You pre-buy and you pre-commit to 1,500 tons of salt at X price, and then you call them as you need it. Every time you empty out 10 ton, 20 ton out of a storm, you call, refill 10 ton out of a storm. It's not like if you use more in July, and if in January, in February, it costs more or less. Maybe the trucking is more to bring it in, but as I understood it, the trucking to deliver it as you use it was a set fee, as opposed to if you had it trucked all at one time. I don't know how this town buys its salt, but that's how I was always used to, people that I worked for, that's how we bought.
I don't know exactly the answer to all those questions. I know that when they deliver it, there's
I know it's cheaper, what you're
right.
saying, I'm not disputing what you're saying. Buying it all at once and filling it once is definitely cheaper.
I just don't understand what this has to do with the salt budget or the highway garage. I mean, it's a simple thing. The new proposed salt shed will hold more salt. You can buy it cheaper. You can store it. It will be inside, and it won't be violating the DES rules for salt leaching out of the building that's up at the landfill right now. Because the salt shed that's up there now is exposed to the weather. It does lump up now. They have to take it out. They have to smash it on the ground. They have to run it over to load it in the trucks. It's not in compliance with the best practices of storing salt. So, the concept here is to bring the town away from a salt, a lean-to that's archaic, that's been in existence for 40 years, and create something that's more with best practices, not only for storing salt, but also for the environment. And the sooner that we can get that salt off of that site, the better it is. If you know anything about where the salt shed now, it's up on a hill, and there's an industrial building that's down below. Well, gravity's gonna take that excess salt and run it down there. I mean, that's gravity. So there's a lot of moving parts. I mean, don't forget, the whole move of the highway garage off of that site is because we had a choice of spending $1 million to try to mitigate the methane gas that was going towards the building. And once you start trying to mitigate that and dig in trenches and all that, you might spend $1 million and maybe you can mitigate it. But then after you spend $1 million, what do you got? You got $1 million you just put in the ground. So there was a reason why we moved off that site, and also the central location, and also the salt shed has another component to it related to the Energy Committee, which is to design that building with about a 3,000 square foot roof that faces solar south, so you could mount the panels there so that you could get a payback over a short amount of time and supply the electricity for not only the highway garage, but also for the town building here and for other buildings. So it's more than one thing. It's not just about salt, it's about solar panels, it's about getting off of another site, it's about being able to buy more salt and store it environmentally friendly, and to save the town money. It's, you know, the $350,000 price there is relevant to the size of the structure and what you're trying to accomplish. If you do nothing, the question is are you going to still stay up on that site, and for how long?
Yeah, if I can speak, I don't think the question was about whether or not we needed a shed or not. I think everyone is in agreement we need one. I think what was in question is, do we want to spend $350 for a shed, and do we want to spend it now? That seems to be the discussion.
So I can tell you that the philosophy that I've worked with the Board of Selectmen is that we've looked at using funds from the general fund unassigned fund balance for a lot of projects to not affect the tax rate, but to use those funds in an appropriate way, spread out over, in this case, 3 years, so that we maintain our fund balance consistent with the fund balance policy, and that we build it in phases and let people see what we're doing, which is an open house for the highway garage on January 25th and 26th, the Saturday and Sunday, so that people can actually see where the money's gone, albeit it's not raising taxes to do it, it was using our fund balance. So the question is do you leave money in the fund balance, or do you use the money in the fund balance to accomplish some of these projects in town? So, I'm not sure that it's really relevant to the tax rate, because if you think about it, every project that we're doing out of the fund balance is coming out of the fund balance, so it's not.
Which was money that was appropriated and tax money that was put in there for something else that didn't get
Not,
spent.
not necessarily, because there's revenues that come in.
Okay.
Revenues go in there too, so I don't know what the split is over time, but there's revenues that are a factor too.
Can you say, logistically speaking, because it sounds like it would be a really best-case scenario that it got built if it passes, which I know a couple of people trying to build steel buildings right now, and like you said, the backup still exists. A person was supposed to have theirs in November, they just told them March. So it would be very optimistic that it be ready for next year, even if it did pass.
Right.
Logistically, how's that gonna work if they don't have it over there once the whole highway crew moves?
So, this year now, we're doing a soft move-in right now, so this would be kind of similar. Over the next couple weeks, if they get all of the garage stuff in there and they're moved off of the old site, which we've already moved the offices and all that equipment, and now we're working in the garage to migrate that stuff over, that the plow trucks and the equipment would be under the roof, inside, and the loader would stay up at the old building, because they need the loader to load the salt and to push the pile up, and the trucks would still go up there to be loaded, so it would work just like it's gonna work for the remainder of this year. But ultimately, if it was all at one site, then you wouldn't really have to have equipment up at the other site.
It's more efficient, of course.
Right, so, and there's another complicated problem with closing down that building right away because of a water line that comes into the building that we have to keep from freezing because it supplies the animal kennel. So that would be something we would look at next year. If it passes in March and we know we're gonna be headed towards that, we would redirect that water line into a space that was smaller to heat and not heat that large space in the garage. So it would work similar. And to your point about the steel and the buildings, you know, I would be very proactive to make sure that the steel landed on the ground sooner, and I would use all my resources to get that done, because I know what I ran into problems with this last time, and I wouldn't want to run into that again. So,
Is everybody ready to call for a vote, or?
I just wanted to say, make one more comment, because you missed it before you came in, Mark. I believe what we're struggling with is the fact that we just had a historically high tax increase for residents of this town. And as a result of that, we're trying to figure out why. And a lot of it is because we've been proactive. We've been proactive with the highway, the safety garage, the safety complex, the highway garage, the two bridges we've built over the last 4 years, Garden Road and Westfield Road, all of the culverts that we've been dealing with and things like that, both repairing them and the engineering for them. We just feel as though things are catching up with us, and that is the reason why we've had such a large tax increase. We just want to slow it down a little. We want to.
so just to respond to your second point is the highway garage. Well, the highway garage didn't make your taxes go up because the highway garage came out of the unreserved fund balance.
Right, but since you've been here, we haven't had that money going back into lowering the tax rate. We used to always have $500,000, $600,000 thrown in to lower the tax rate. We've used that money to lower taxes, not to build infrastructure.
Yes.
So I'll just do counterpoint, but I'll wait for my turn. So to that point, Mr. Hamilton, the average was about $600,000 a year you were using, or the town had made a decision to use. You can't sustain that. You only had enough funds to probably do that for 4 years, you'd be down to zero. So you can't do that. So that's why we changed the formula, so that we leveled off that and made it so it was, you didn't have to add any of the unreserved fund balance to lower the taxes, because that's a game it's only a temporary fix that you're fooling yourself if you think you're gonna be able to knock the tax rate down every year with $600,000, because let's face it, the fund balance here hovers around $2 million to $2.3 million. You can only do that for 4 years. What are you gonna do in 4 years if you do that? You're gonna have nothing left, and you're gonna violate your own policy of your fund balance to keep a reserve. So that didn't affect taxes. It affected taxes in the respect that what you said is true in previous years. But don't forget, I'm going to bring up a point, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. You had a tax rate of, was it $24.50? It was in that range, $24.56, something like that, that was steady for like 4 years.
Right.
Yeah, well, the reason why it was steady like that is because you were dropping $600,000 every year to keep it at $24.56, you know? That's a game that was played, but that wasn't a game that we've continued to play. We're trying to be fiscally responsible, and we're not going to try to fool anybody by playing the game of recommending to dump $500,000 or $600,000 from that fund, because you can't sustain it. So that, you know, that when you mentioned it, I just had to respond that we're not trying to fool anybody by moving the pieces on the chessboard around. We don't believe it's good fiscal policy to artificially try to keep your tax rate down by dumping a lot of money from the fund reserves in there. True, if we're not doing that, and we're fixing infrastructure, we're actually saving you money, because the cost of building that infrastructure is only gonna go up in the future. So if you build it now, it's cheaper. And the big thing I heard when I got here was, you know, we have the debt service from the public safety complex that was done through a bond, and that's your debt service, you know, for the next period of years, and that was decided before I got here. But was there a way to do, you know, to build infrastructure here without creating more debt service? Well, the only way I know of doing that is either by grants or by, you know, using your fund balance and do what we've been doing. So If you think about the big picture, with this highway garage and the public safety complex and the Safe Routes to School that was mostly grant, or almost nearly 100% grant, the Westville Road, which was an 80-20, and then we got some other unanticipated funds from the state with the highway block grant that we put towards that. So that bridge project really wasn't like a big taxpayer expense. The Smith Corner collapse that happened out there was unanticipated, and that came out of unanticipated, and actually, we saved a lot of money. Not that I hope that that happens in the future, but if we had to permit it the regular way, that project would have been 3 times the cost, you know? So, yeah, we're fixing things, and we're trying to upgrade the infrastructure.
I don't want to like go back and forth, I just want to.
Just one other comment. Then why are our taxes so high?
Your taxes are a formula of the assessing and your revenues and your budget, and there's always going to be a formula every year on the different funds that come in, and it's spread out amongst the taxpayers. I know you're asking me the question, and you know the answer. You know, that's part of the process of setting the tax rate on what you're going to do.
But how long can we continue to see these increases in our taxes that are out of line compared to other towns?
You know, this is
I mean,
going
other
in a different
towns,
area.
Mark,
You
other
know,
towns-
I'm here for the budget committee to answer
Okay.
your questions.
I just want to take a vote on the
Okay,
warrant articles.
that's fine,
Okay.
that's fine.
Jay made the motion, Katie seconded it, so all those in recommending the warrant article, say aye. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 5, 4.
Favor?
So it was in favor,
Can you call the vote again? Because I think we're a little confused.
okay, all those recommending, say aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4, 5, 0.
Four in favor and 5 against?
Right.
For the highway garage?
Right.
Okay, Pollard Road culvert repair.
General question, you guys don't have to answer me. For those who voted against it, why?
I think I said it originally
there
on my
wasn't enough
comment on the
process.
motion. I would have liked to
You
see
didn't like
more.
the process? Okay.
I would like to see more input from the committee and some different options on the shed.
Okay.
We didn't really do much. We just said, here's the shed, this is what it's gonna cost. We didn't get any input with the committee.
And from the energy standpoint, they really want to put the panels on the bigger garage, because that's what's going to give us the most payback as far as solar and getting it back to the town. So I don't know if the solar panels on the salt shed, if that,
So there's no warrant article for solar panels on the garage?
correct,
This basically fails, there are no solar panels.
right, but I'm wondering if that design is making it more expensive. Instead of doing, like Sam said, there was a hoop type of salt shed. Because there's solar panels on this salt shed, I'm wondering if that,
I don't think you can put solar
Made-
panels on a hoop.
Question.
right, but I'm saying that may have increased the price of the salt shed design, right?
Is that a question? Because I
Yeah,
can
I
answer
guess
that.
I'm asking.
It hasn't gone out to bid. I sat down with engineers and went back and forth in Georgia. They're licensed in New Hampshire. They're the ones that did the highway garage building. I told them what we wanted that would be tailored for the solar panels. There was no extra cost. In fact, we didn't even get charged for the preliminary design. So relatively speaking, the cost that I had from a company out of New York to build a conventional salt shed was $250,000, which I think you had a copy of that. It was Elmira, New York. And the prices I've got from a lot of places around here that have built salt sheds for municipalities, just a salt shed without any special roof or anything, was in the $250 range. The preliminary price I got, asking that exact question, was less than 200. So I was thinking that, for purpose of the warrant article, that if we carried forward the 250 number and then the 75 for the solar panels, that gets us to, 325. But as you know, there's always other things. It's not just the building. It's also the underground trenching, the tying into the building. There's the battery storage area. There's the, the paving of the ground where the salt is. There's the, what happens outside the building and the finish area. So, you're talking just building, that's a contract for building, but there's other things related. So that's how the 350. So I didn't really think that the 350 was really significantly out of line with building a salt shed, because you're also getting those solar panels with the payback. If it goes out to bid and we accomplish both of them for 300, then that's a win for us. But the problem is if you don't appropriate enough, then you're really in a bind. We did not make that number bigger because of solar panels. In fact, I actually made it smaller. And with your comment about the highway garage roof and the area, although it's got a bigger roof surface, you're only really looking at probably the back side of the roof, so it's only half of the building. And it's not turned into facing solar south, so you're gonna have panels that are gonna be shading other panels as you go down the roof. So there's less square footage, possibly, by putting solar panels on the actual highway garage roof than there is by having direct solar south and filling the whole thing without having any shading issues.
I know, we had him come in and do a presentation to the Energy Committee, and from what I gathered, it wouldn't matter where it's facing, they can make it work. I'm not an expert in solar.
But one thing I've found with salespeople, when they're
Yeah.
standing here, they always make it sound rosy, and, because they're trying to make a sale. And we're going through that problem right now with the LED street lighting, because people promise things and things are not coming to fruition. So just be careful of the people that make presentations, because one thing to make a rosy presentation, it's another thing to deliver what they say they're gonna deliver, so.
Pollard Road culvert repair.
I think the contingency is next.
Oh, did I skip a page? Oh,
Yeah, it's on the
that's
back.
its own page. Contingency fund, is there a motion to recommend? Contingency fund,
I'll make a motion to recommend.
second? I'll second it. Discussion?
How much of the contingency fund did we use last year?
I'm gonna play a little game here and just guess. I think it's about 20,000.
$16,600.
How much?
$16,600.
And how much, and we still have a budget that's a surplus in our budget.
Correct.
So why couldn't we have used that 16,000 out of the surplus in the budget by moving line items, with the bottom line budget? Why do we need the contingency fund?
Did you
for
know
that
on
amount?
January 1st that you were going to have that money left over?
Pardon
The
me?
end of the year? On January 1st, or when you needed to use it, did you know that you were going to have a surplus at the end of the year?
Yes.
You did on January 1st.
We usually have, 200, 300, 400,000.
That's not correct. If you go back through and look at the audit reports, it's not historically 200, 300, or 400,000. There are years that are less than that. And if you come by my office, I'll show you where in the audit report to find that.
Okay.
Yep, Jay?
If, so this contingency fund, if for some reason we run out of salt and sand, can we use this contingency fund to purchase that type of stuff?
Well, the contingency fund was very specific when it was worded, and it was unanticipated. So that's a term that could be interpreted by a lot of people as being ambiguous. We certainly haven't had any issues where something was ambiguous so far. I think that would be a little bit ambiguous because you can anticipate a lot of salt usage in a range.
Right.
I think it's a stretch to use it for salt. That's my personal opinion. But there
So
may
if
be
you
some other
lost
opinions.
The septic tank in another building.
Something that you don't have in the budget
Right.
that is unanticipated. We had the Smith Corner Road collapse.
Yep.
That was totally unanticipated. No one, we knew we had to look at that in the future, but we didn't know it was gonna collapse. We had the furnace at the Historical Society, totally unanticipated. We had the park building that sustained the backup with the sewerage into the building, totally unanticipated.
Yep.
We had a
That's-
well before you were here.
What's that?
We had a well go here
Well,
before
yeah,
you were
we didn't have the
down
fund and I wasn't here. I'm only
Right.
talking about what I know of.
Yep.
So the usage that we've had, we had a water main that sustained some damage because of some unique circumstances over at the highway garage because of a loading dock, and it was along the railroad tracks. It was just unanticipated, so we used it there. But it's been relatively, well, it's been helpful. And, you know, to the point about can't you use the surplus? Well, you know, what Mr. Colby's saying is that, you know, surplus, it depends. I mean, I've had years where I've worked where you think you got a good budget, and a budget is just a guess and a plan for the year. And, you know, you get walloped in some areas all at once with either workers out of work because of a lot of injuries, or you get unforeseen storm events. And all of a sudden, at the end of the year, you're putting a freeze on the budget, and you don't have a surplus. So that contingency was supposed to be used for true unanticipated events. I don't think it's been abused. It goes through the Board of Selectmen. I was there when they developed the warrant article. It was very clear to me it would be unanticipated. So as far as moving stuff around, that's not something that we use as a method to pay for things.
Thank you.
Greg, did you ever hand up?
Yeah, I have one question. Is the amount for the contingency fund in line with what's recommended by DRA?
It's less than what
It's not on
they
here.
will allow you to do.
It's less than what they allow you to do?
Yes.
So we have a smaller contingency?
Yes, yes.
Which means we
We
must
could go higher, but that was also rolled back through the budgeting process.
So this is a good financial policy to be able to keep the town afloat if something happens that we're not expecting. And this doesn't seem to be very excessive.
So I look at it this way, you know, you have your operating budget, and basically that's your four corners of what you're supposed to spend. But if something is out of the ordinary, you have the contingency, which is just that 80,000 or 85,000, depending on what year we're talking about. So it's a little relief valve, but that is appropriated every year from your general fund, unassigned fund balance. So is that true, Greg? It's coming out of the unassigned? So you're actually just saying, hey, we got this savings account over here, general fund, unassigned fund balance. Let us take 80,000 and put that out there, just in case we need it. And we'll only use it for unanticipated. And if we don't use it, that money goes right back into the general fund, and we'll do it again next year. The only other way that I know of is to petition Superior Court when you have something that is gonna be out of the ordinary, and ask for like a special town meeting or special permission from the court to access that money. I don't look at the general fund unassigned fund balance as an account, a rainy day account that we can just go in and do whatever we want. It goes through the budget process. That's why we have these warrant articles. So we just can't go to there and say, oh, we got something unanticipated, so we're just gonna go to the rainy day fund. It doesn't work that way.
Was it 80,000 last year, too?
I think it was 85 last year. It was 85, we dropped it to 80 this year.
And we only
Again,
used,
this does not affect the tax rate, or the setting of the tax rate, so that's money coming out of the unassigned fund balance, and going back into the unassigned fund balance. So in this year, 16,000 from 85, so there's 70,000 that's going back in the unassigned. So substantially, that's gonna be the same money that's gonna come back out this year to use it for unanticipated, and if it's not used, they'll go back in.
As far as the, the unassigned fund and the operating budgets, it doesn't really ever leave the general fund. It stays in the general fund
Correct.
until you need it.
Correct.
So it doesn't really go back in. It just,
Well, if it didn't come out, it doesn't need to go back in, but in theory, it is, you could put it on paper.
Right, it's-
That it's all parked over here in case you need it, and then if you're not needed, gets parked in. We can look at it that way.
Okay.
Or you can say, well, the money really doesn't move
but it
because you don't use it.
physically doesn't move.
But it's an accounting.
Right, okay.
It's also stating a purpose for this fund. So you're basically setting it aside to be used specifically for this one purpose. You can't spend that money for anything else.
No.
So that's the difference. If it's just inside of the unassigned fund balance, it's kind of open general fund.
Right.
So it's surplus.
Surplus, sure.
Is discussion, any more discussion? All those in favor of recommending the contingency fund, say aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? 4, 5, 0.
What was the vote on that?
4, 5. Pollard Road culvert repair. Is there a motion to recommend the Pollard Road culvert repair? Bob, did you want to make a motion? Or I didn't know if.
I make a motion to recommend the Pollard Road culvert repair for $90,000.
Second? 8 seconds. Discussion? Yeah.
Is this the actual cost? It's an estimate, or
Yes.
is it an RFP or something where you can't until it passes, right?
There was engineering, design, permitting, and all of this so that we could apply for a grant, so that we could bring it to the voters. And just like we did for the amounts for Westville Road Bridge. So, yes, if you remember, Westville Road Bridge had a number, and then the first round of bids came out higher, and then it was delayed, and then we rebid it, and then we got something that was in the range. So we could get nobody to bid on it. We could get people to bid on it and bid over it, and then we'll just keep on going until we, you can't award the bid to somebody that's gonna charge you more than what you have appropriated. But that's the number to do the job as we know it now, with the combination of what we've already put in, which is approximately 47,000 or something like that. And then that's also taking into consideration the grant that we're gonna get for a certain amount too. So this is just a remaining portion.
The grant is approximately,
What's that?
the grant is approximately how much?
47%.
And
Okay.
this 47%,
Okay.
there seems to be a
Got it.
common denominator, but
Got
it's
it.
it's
Okay.
less than, just slightly less than 50. And the odd thing is that we were told by DES there was no grants, but I did go out and find a grant.
Right.
And so it's, call it a 50%, you know, I mean, it's almost 50%. I mean, it wasn't eligible for the bridge aid of 80/20. And then we were told there was no grants, but I did find one. And we got approved for it, and we competed against it with other people. So if this doesn't pass, then you've spent $47,000, and that you're not gonna get a return on your investment, you're not gonna get that money back. And the grant opportunity is gonna go away, and somebody else that's further down in line that didn't get it will probably move up, and they'll get it, and then we'll still have the problem that is over at the Pollard Road. So it's a choice that you make to fix a problem or not fix a problem.
Okay, good, thank you.
What is the current state of the culvert?
That it fails in high water events, and it's not sufficient for the flow that happens in high water events, and it needs to be bigger, and the road elevation needs to be higher to prevent the flooding in that area. And it's also not consistent with best practices as far as the aquatic life and the other wildlife over there, and that the new culvert will provide some passage back and forth with the wildlife and the aquatic life, and basically it will be designed to the best practices of a culvert in that area and prevent some flooding and road closures.
Thank you.
Dennis,
How many years have we been looking at to
fix it.
5 at least, that I know of.
fix it?
Before I
Yeah,
get here.
before you, yeah.
And it's been recommended by the, what's the committee there? It's this committee that we.
Conservation?
No, it's the, part of the hazard mitigation plan. It's been recommended as that it's a hazard mitigation plan, and that is one of the things that has been on the drawing board to address. So my job is to, I feel my job is to look at what the needs of the community are and address the needs of the community. This is a need.
Does that grant include the 47,000 we already put into it?
It includes it to the extent that we get credit for what we're doing.
Oh, okay.
And so that meets our percentage of what it is that we're trying to do, yes.
All right, is everybody ready to vote? All those in favor of recommending the Pollard Road culvert repair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 5-0-0. Oh, 9, sorry, 9. Copy. Okay, Highway Department, equipment, truck bed?
Can I make a statement before we get into this? Just a general question. I don't want to have to involve it in with the warrant. Mark, or Greg, maybe you can answer this. All these, the warrants that are phrased no amount to be used by new taxation.
Right.
Other Greg, actually. Either or. If none of these were to pass, all this money that is, you say, already in the unreserved, unassigned fund balance that has been raised by taxation and revenues, it stays there, and how does that affect the taxpayer?
What number is that?
It doesn't. Your savings account becomes larger.
Okay.
That's all it does. It stays there, and there's,
All these trust funds basically are a way
think
of
it's page
collecting money to get to a large expenditure. So you're basically putting money into these trust funds, and you are holding on to it until you've
it's not.
accumulated enough money to get a major purchase.
Well, that's
It's
something,
intended
That's
to be
different.
spent.
that's different.
It's
We're
different.
talking about trust funds, he's talking about the unreserved fund balance.
Oh,
correct,
okay.
So,
We're talking about
unreserved fund
the-
balance
yes.
is that 2.3 or whatever number it is that goes up and down, you know, it's by year. And it's what we accumulate for revenues and,
30.
and money, you know, free cash, they call it free cash in mass, but it's general fund unassigned fund balance. So if all those warrant articles don't pass, then we won't be spending any money out of that account, and that money just stays there. And we're only asking to draw down, and I don't know what the final number would be if they all pass, but I think we figured out that it would still be around the $2 million mark.
Which is our 9% of reserve that we're supposed to keep, something to that.
We'd be, I think 1.7 is about as low as we can go, 1.7 million to be in compliance.
Okay.
Right, so we'd be above it. Even if everything passed, we'd be above that requirement for the fund policy.
Okay.
Okay, so now on to the truck
Now,
bed.
I'll check that.
Yeah.
I thought we'd
No.
already gone into it. That's why I thought you were asking.
Is there a motion to recommend that we withdraw 50,000, the warrant article to withdraw 50,000 from the expendable trust fund?
I'll
for
make
the
a
highway
motion
department?
that we approve the highway department equipment truck bed repair.
Recommend the warrant article.
Right,
Yeah.
recommend, thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Dennis? Okay.
One
Discuss-
key point that we added from a discussion at the Board of Selectmen was that to tell the taxpayers that a brand-new truck, a brand-new vehicle would cost $200,000. So by repairing this and we're just replacing the bed itself, it seems like it costs a lot of money. I think you could buy a pretty nice car for $50,000, but when you're buying these huge trucks, The actual cost is 200,000.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that.
Pete?
I believe as I listened to last night's meeting is, I think it would cost $200,000. That's not the same as having a quote.
No, it's
If
not.
you're saying, I think it's something like that because we gotta provide all the plows and the wings, that is not quite accurate. If you have a quote that you can put into that coder's guide, I think that's more
We're
truthful
stating
than saying,
approximate
I
cost.
think.
No, I didn't say I think. We said approximate cost 200,000. And we got that from Mark, who is experiencing
Where
buying
did
these
that come from?
vehicles.
Well, I've looked at what other towns and cities have purchased for a truck. So there's a state bid, and then there's things that people order for the trucks to make them custom. The previous number in Plaistow was 165 a number of years ago, and of course, vehicles cost more every year. The way that the Salem orders their trucks, they had theirs priced out at 185, and then there was a couple communities north of us that theirs was priced out over 200. So it depends on what you spec your truck out to be.
So.
It's a range.
It depends.
Of course it depends.
So if you spec out the truck, a replacement truck to fulfill what you currently have,
Correct, right. To replace what we currently have with all of the same type equipment would be, by today's standards, 200, not 165 or 185.
Jay, did you have your hand up before?
And I still got,
I just don't want to, we're just voting on the warrant
okay,
article.
we have already spent 48,000 on the truck, maybe not, it says it.
Yes, yes,
So we're spending $100,000 on this truck. 50
Yes.
for the bed, 40 that we've already put in,
yes.
and we still have a used truck.
You have a 10-year-old truck? Yes. And the thought process was to make that truck last 10 more years. Which means that 20 years, well, there was a 7-year replacement schedule before that. When I came here, the year I came here, they showed me the truck. It had 21,000 miles on it. They showed me the rust on the body, and they told me that they were gonna order a new truck. And I said, well, how much was that? And at the time, they said 165. So I met with the CIP and looked into what we could do. So this is a plan to spend less money in the course of a 20-year period, spend about $100,000 over 20 years, and not buy 2 other trucks at the 7-year interval and the 14-year interval, and if you add those 2 together, rough numbers, 400,000. So you don't spend 400, but you spend 100. So the net savings is $300,000 over 20 years.
But for this truck, you're only talking about the body that
Body.
holds the sand, not the body of the truck.
Correct, correct. The
The
body, the bed, they call it the bed, yes,
So we're saying that the body of this salt truck is gonna last for 20 years?
yes,
He fixed it.
yes.
The cabin chassis.
Cabin chassis and the fiberglass, hood and, metal doors and all that stuff, yes. So there's, yeah.
Bob?
One of the selling points of the highway garage, a larger highway garage, is that it would keep all equipment inside.
Last longer.
So everything should be lasting longer.
And wash it,
And washed.
because we have a washing station inside that they can wash the vehicles down to get the salt off to make it last longer.
I wanted to express an opinion on the explanation. I have to say something, because I'm in favor of the article. I totally believe it's worth spending the money to get an extra 10 years out of the truck. But my personal opinion of putting in the comparison price is a thorn in my side, because I went through this when I was on the CIP committee and when I was on this committee when we were changing the front-end loader. And I asked to put on the intent at the time, the alternative price to repair the vehicle as opposed to replace it. And I might as well have been rung off the flagpole. It was roughly $200,000 for the loader, and it was a quarter of that to possibly get it fixed. And the explanation listed everything from a broken rearview mirror to a taillight to a fender that it needed. But I was crucified by saying, why can't we put on here the alternative of spending $50,000 as opposed to $200,000?
there is no RSA that prohibits
The intent.
feeding data to the taxpayer to have them make a good decision. What we had got into in the past from previous select boards was basically politicizing a warrant article to get it passed. And
This is no different.
They basically had like self-correct themselves. So they kind of went way overboard. If you, from what I'm told, if you go to other towns, not only do they have more information inside of their explanations, but some of them put the explanation right in the warrant article.
Which is what we used to do.
Right. And when I first heard about that, I think it's a wonderful thing.
In the warrant?
Because when someone goes to vote, they don't see this
So
explanation.
you can't in the warrant, it's illegal. We've found that out.
It's electioneering.
Not.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It is not.
It is
As long as the information is factual and it is neutral, you can put it in.
Well, the stuff we were putting in was illegal.
It was not illegal. It was not illegal. There's no RSA that covers that.
Yes, there is.
It was determined by the town of Plaistow.
No, they're
Town of
attorneys.
Plaistow, wait a minute, let me explain something. The town of Plaistow, the select board was doing this, and when people started complaining about it, they brought it to the attorney. The attorney said, I recommend that you make these neutral. That was a recommendation. It's not a law.
The DRA or NHMA, I forget which one. The town's policy was we send it to DRA. They send it back. We use it. What DRA said was, we only police what you have to have in it.
Correct.
We do not tell you
That's
that
right.
this can or cannot be in it.
That's correct.
Then our attorney said XYZ cannot be in it.
It's he was recommending that they keep it neutral. So basically.
I'll send you the correspondence. I have
Yeah,
them.
so from what I understand, the other towns do, and all the towns have to send their warrant articles up to DRA to get them approved. Basically, it's the town's decision to how much information they want to give the taxpayers.
Yeah, I agree
I
with the
100%
article.
agree with you that we shouldn't be politicizing these, but I think we need to give our taxpayers enough information so they can make their own good decision. When I go into the voting booth and I start reading the zoning warrants, I have no idea what I'm reading. I have no idea what what they're talking about. And I have to vote blindly. So I think that's really foolish. I think we really should provide this information in the warrant so people can understand it.
I think Sam just wanted to note that he was in favor, but he doesn't think
Yeah, because
But we're not gonna
I
change
tried
it.
to do just this. No, again, we can't change this. We can only
So
recommend it
your
not.
vote right now is on the warrant article, not on the intent.
Yeah, he
of
just
the-
wanted to
correct,
express.
The voter's guide, so I didn't know if you're going through, are you using that to base your
That's what
votes?
I know, well, this is what we're working off of.
Right,
is the-
right, but I mean,
We're
it's two
getting
different
way
things.
off
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah.
We're gonna be here
We're
till
gonna,
midnight.
we're gonna vote on it. I think he just wanted to express that before we vote. Okay, so we have a first and a second. All those in favor of recommending the highway department truck bed, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstain, 900. Okay, the next one is for the forklift. And this is new information that you added, right? The 25 minus, okay. Is there a motion to recommend this?
Make a motion to recommend the highway department equipment forklift.
Second? I'll second it. Discussion? Yeah.
Question? How much money is in the road impact fees at this point, approximately?
I don't know.
I mean, this seems to be one of those impact fees that we have difficulty finding use for. So if there's a substantial amount of money in there, I know it's after the fact, but I just wanted to bring up the fact that maybe it could all be used up from that before it expires. But it's not our job anyhow, so I just wanted to state it.
Or,
Thank you.
So can I ask the question, is the $10,000, the determination of coming up with that $10,000 based on what could be spent on the impact fees? Or was it just what was left?
It wasn't the balance, it was just a portion, and it's not scheduled to expire.
So we're not going to be.
No, we're not gonna be in jeopardy.
We can use the rest of
Yeah.
the funds for other
Yes.
purposes. Okay.
All those in favor of the forklift?
Aye.
Opposed? A 900. Capital Reserve Fund deposit, fire department apparatus. Total appropriation 15,000.
You missed one.
What is this, 50, I have 15,000. Oh, I'm on the second one, sorry. 100,000. There, yep.
Make a motion to recommend the capital reserve fund deposit for the fire department apparatus for $100,000.
Dennis.
All right,
Okay.
second.
Discussion? No discussion? Okay. All those in favor of recommending the warrant article, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, 900. Capital Reserve Fund deposit for the radio fund.
I'll make a motion that we recommend Article P 2010, 15,000 for the Capital Reserve Fund deposit for the Fire Department Radio Fund.
I'll second.
Discussion? Mark, I don't know if you can answer this question. I was looking into other towns, and I think Sandown got a grant for their mics. Do you know anything about grants we could have applied for?
So, since 2001, there's been some grants out there for radios, and there's been some programs offered by different radio manufacturers, and we have taken advantage of those, and we did receive some grants. I don't remember the exact amounts. It's a moving target because after a period of years, the radios start breaking down, and you have to buy new models, and that's what this program is. But we did purchase a bunch of radios because of that grant. So there are grants out there, and we do access them, and we have. This is an ongoing replacement, though. So we didn't replace them all. It was take your worst ones and replace those with the grant funds and what we have in the past, and to continue to replace them.
Can you only apply for that grant once, or is it something?
There's only so much money available, so they spread it out, and they kind of share it with everybody. So they're not going to come in and
Give it to us all.
give it to everybody. You're not going to get it all. We're going to get a portion like everybody else. But we joined it was a unique opportunity with, I think, I won't say the manufacturer's name, but one of the manufacturers had a unique opportunity that we could buy radios at almost 50% discount. So we did go and take advantage of that, because it was only a small time frame to do it, and we did jump on that to do that. So that opportunity might not happen again.
Yeah, Bob.
So are you saying we're buying radios kind of ongoing every year? We buy some radios?
Not every year,
Not
but
every
there's
year, but
blocks of radios and
ongoing.
equipment we buy on intervals.
How much money is in that fund currently?
We will have we'll have the balance, and,
He can tell you.
yeah, by the end of the week or something like that, maybe, Greg?
I think he can tell you right now.
There's 158,000, no, so. I will have to get back to you on that.
Didn't we just create that last year?
I think that is the case, so I don't believe there's any money in that fund. Or-
Or
There's
possi-
whatever was
or possibly-
appropriated last year, now I
Right.
remember, it was created last year, thank you.
So maybe-
And we transferred the money into it at the end of December, and I only have through November's numbers, I'm waiting on the December numbers from the
Okay.
trustees.
Good, okay, that's fine.
All All those in favor of the radio fund?
Aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? So 5, 4, 0. Capital Reserve Fund deposit buildings, building system. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend the capital reserve fund deposit building/building systems.
Second? Okay.
Second.
Is this a, new fund created this year? No?
No, because it was already established.
I didn't know if we like joined two together or something. I thought we had.
It was already
Okay.
established. It might have been established,
Okay. I'm confusing it with something else
yeah.
then.
No, it's been utilized over the course of several years. It only has $4,800 in it,
Is this the,
November.
We replenish
Sorry.
it.
is this the one that was used for the doors downstairs? Okay.
Yes.
So, in the CIP meeting, Mark, I think you were there. Wasn't there a request from the building supervisor to put money into a new CIP? That's not this one?
No.
No. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, there was a warrant article for, Paul, they were gonna do a warrant article for, buildings for Paul, but I don't think it made the cut.
It didn't, okay.
Didn't make the cut.
That's what I'm thinking of
Right.
then. Okay,
Thanks.
yeah. Pete?
How is this fund different from the contingency fund if this is for unanticipated or emergency build repairs?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you think about it, anything to do with a building is unanticipated because you just don't know when, the heating system would go or, just anything can go wrong, water leaks, things like that. So it's inherent with all the buildings. The truth of the matter is, and I guess I'll go out on a limb, just comparing, the library has a capital has a fund for fixing things at the library. Why I bring that up is the fund that we have for the town buildings is so small, and yet we have, I think, 7 buildings. So, the library has this fund to keep up with their repairs down there, and we got this real small fund for 7 buildings. We're behind the 8 ball.
Well,
And-
my question was,
Yeah,
how is it
I know about
different?
unanticipated.
How is it different?
Well, first of all, we only established the unanticipated for the whole town and not just for buildings. So I would just say that the building fund is specifically for unanticipated for buildings, but it can't handle a big unanticipated event.
Well, just looking at last year, if we've only used $16,000 out of the 85 that was done,
Yes.
that contingency fund could handle the buildings, and I get to my original question, how is this different than a contingency fund?
Because inherently, buildings have unanticipated things and will always have unanticipated things, and that the contingency fund that was established was more holistic for the whole town, albeit, a road collapse or bigger things.
I'm not buying that argument.
Well, to put it in simple terms, if you have a building maintenance fund that has contingencies for buildings and you have a road collapse, you can't take the funds out of there to fix the road.
But if you have a town contingency fund, you can fix the building.
You could.
So how is this different? That's my question.
It's an overlap of what was done before there was a bigger contingency fund.
Okay. Yeah, Bob.
So there's $48,000 in there now. Is that what we're saying?
4,800.
100, okay.
$4,800.
Gotcha.
And the 28,000 would be added to that, yeah, Dennis?
Was this also the new furnace that the Historical Society used out of here, or was that different?
That came out of the contingency.
That was contingency,
Because there wasn't money in this fund to be able to.
too.
And again, under the explanation, Mr. Bracci, it also talks about or building systems repair and maintenance. So, I mean, if the the doors downstairs, the key fobs don't work and we need to repair those, that's not really a contingency fund purchase to be able to do a repair like that or ongoing maintenance if it's a building system item.
But wouldn't that come out of building maintenance, not a contingency fund? It's a maintenance fund. The building has a maintenance part of the budget in buildings.
But it's been cut back and has not been, allowed to accumulate, it doesn't accumulate where this has. I mean, the budget has been cut back over the years so that there's less and less money there to be able to do items. If you look at the explanations, a lot of the money there is for ongoing maintenance. It's not for repairing of those things. It's for,
You mean to
PMs, it's for the.
Are you telling me that we don't have a budget for repair?
It's not very big. If you look in the budget,
So we have to have a warrant article to repair our buildings?
to set aside money to have it available, yes.
I just want to call the vote, so.
Yeah. Can I just ask one other quick
Yeah.
question? I'm going to ask it again. What is our anticipated budget surplus for 2019?
We're only 7 days into the new fiscal year. I haven't had a chance to close the books.
Can you give us a ballpark, please?
No, I can't.
Okay,
Okay.
The maintenance and cleaning for buildings is $8,000. That's actually, yeah, $8,000.
So one of the things, to give you an idea, is the generators and the maintenance on the generators. And we have generators at the Public Safety Complex. We have 2 there. We have 1 at Town Hall. They have preventative maintenance, and they have the PMs that they do, and then they have the service, and, there's not a lot of money there when you have to fix something that goes wrong that they find during the PMs. If you look at the total maintenance budget for the 7 buildings, all you need is one big thing to go wrong, and you have depleted some of those line items. It's that fragile, because there's seven different things that only has a small fund. So all you have to have is one catastrophic thing, and it just wipes it out. And then we're gonna go to the bigger one and go, this is unanticipated, to have 3 catastrophic events at 3 buildings, or 2 in 1 building, If the heating system, give you an example, if the heating system in this building goes, okay, the maintenance budget cannot handle fixing that. That's the best example I can give you on why you would have a larger contingency fund to help you if something like that happened.
So put it in perspective. So 7 buildings, $8,000, a little over $1,000 for each building. I know if I have something go wrong at my house, it's quite expensive. So if I look at it in simple terms like that, obviously, we could either increase that line of the budget up another 20,000 and do away with this, or choose to do it this way. I
Or you
guess
could
it's
support
either
the
way.
concept of having a
Yeah.
larger contingency that is a catch-all.
Right.
That when you have that, and who says it's 20,000? If the heating system and the furnace, everything goes down, you could conceivably have a bill for $50,000 just for the heating system for this building. Right. Where are you gonna get that from?
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor of the recommended warrant article, say aye.
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 Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 4, no, that's not
Three-
right.
3, 6, 0.
Okay, Capital Reserve Fund, Energy, warrant article for 25,000. Is there a motion on the floor to recommend that? I'll put a motion on just so we can get to the discussion. Is there a second? Jay? I'm on the energy committee, and there aren't really a whole lot of projects in the pipeline, so
You know what the balance is, the blank here?
I don't know, I don't have it off the top of my head. Jay?
Are you looking at LED replacements for the safety complex, since it doesn't have LED?
From the discussion we had, I think maintenance has been replacing lights as they go with LED, so that's what, when I met with him. Julian, did you want to? I know, Jay.
Well, it's a different topic, so.
Julian, can you speak to what we have in the lines of the Energy Committee?
I believe when Paul speaks about replacing certain things, and he says, I'm replacing with LEDs, he's talking about small things like a fixture outside or something like that. He's not talking about all the lighting in the building inside, which was all installed as fluorescent when the building was built.
I met with
Yeah.
him, with Francine,
Yeah.
and he sat down and said he has these bulbs and he's been changing them out as they go instead of replacing them with,
He can't do that. You can't do
Okay.
that with fluorescent fixtures like even in this room.
Can.
I guess it's wherever he can, but
Yeah,
that's
if
how
you
it
get
was.
the whole new fixture and convert it, no, he's not doing that.
Okay,
far as
that's how
I'm
it was
concerned.
Regular
explained to me.
bulbs.
Regular screw-in bulbs that might be in a closet or something, yeah, but that's fairly
Okay.
insignificant on the whole lighting of the whole building.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know what the balance is in the energy capital
don't
reserve
have that
fund?
I don't recall right now.
Okay.
I think we used, 10 for the audit?
And one of the things on that is, we don't have enough balance to do a large project. So if we have something we're going to do, like do the safety complex, we don't have a balance to even, I don't even know if we could, the cost of something like that versus a building like this, if we just took, I know that money in there isn't enough to do a conversion at the safety complex, is one example. Or if you were to use that money to do, let's say, solar on top of the current public works facility. It isn't there, because there's small projects, but it won't cover any other projects. Just like any other CIP, you try to build it up until you have enough to work a big project, like the landfill project, which is, who knows how far in the future that's going to be. But if there's money needed, it's, the amount of money you need really isn't there. So it's a judgment call.
Okay. Jay, did you have your hand up before?
Yep. So on this explanation, it says the $25,000 request for 2020 and the fund balance of approximately whatever would be used to potentially address a solar field on the town landfill.
I don't think that's happening.
Okay, so should we update that explanation? And if that's not the case, what would the $25,000 be used for? The LED lighting?
That's why I'm saying I don't think we have like all these projects in the queue. And, when we're in this situation that Bob had brought up about our taxes, this is one thing that is new taxes. So is it something we can wait a year on?
Right. Well, I'm all in favor of solar and putting up a solar field, but if
Not
there's
there.
no plan at
Right.
this point.
I mean, there's so much stuff going on the landfill, I don't think that's a
Right, if
possibility.
it's even an option to put it out there at this point, so.
Is that something you could change in the,
The sentence about.
landfill,
From the
'cause-
25th out for 2020 and the fund balance of.
Talking about the landfill
just the part about putting a solar array on the landfill, because we have so much stuff going on.
being considered any longer as a current.
Greg,
Be a little
Yeah.
confusing.
I think Greg will agree.
The whole sentence, remove the whole sentence.
With the talks that have been going on with the landfill cap needing repaired and
Yep.
isn't even been funded yet, I think this is pretty
Yeah,
far
it
off.
needs to come
Before
out.
that even gets.
Yep.
Is there any more
Just
discussion yet?
one
Jay?
more question. It says the additional LED lighting audit is proposed for the public safety complex. How much does that cost?
So we contracted, we did an RFP for audits, and they did this building. They didn't do the safety complex because it was still so new, but that audit that they did for the Historical Society, the library, I believe, and this building, and it was between 8,000 and 10,000, I think, so.
Okay.
I don't know how much it would be for one building, but that wasn't included because it was still so new.
So this is a capital reserve fund?
Yes.
All those in favor of recommending the energy? All those opposed? 180. Okay, capital reserve fund recreation. Is there a motion to recommend that warrant? Jay?
Make a motion to recommend the recreation capital reserve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Dennis, Jay, you had your hand up.
I guess my question with this is, and maybe it was talked about in a meeting that I didn't watch, but the selectmen didn't recommend this 2 to 3. Why would we put this on the warrant? Is the rec department pushing to have this warrant for this year?
If all 5 selectmen voted no, we probably would take the warrant off, but 2 of them voted yes.
Okay, so that was the reasoning behind it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I know you can put warrants on, but I was just curious. I didn't see the meeting, so thank you.
Dennis?
Do we know if this is something the rec is pushing forward, or was there input from the rec department in the selectmen's discussion?
To my understanding, they're fully employed, just trying to deal without a rec director. And I got a lot of frustration I heard from Bill in terms of, because this is not his job, and he's
Right,
basically
right.
keeps on getting thrown into the
Volunteer
job. So he
position.
was
Yeah.
very, very concerned about us funding the rec director position. So I really can't speak to that.
Okay.
Bob had his hand up, and then you. Bob?
Go ahead, Bob.
The only projects that we heard about were being funded by grants or impact fees, like the new field and
Trails.
Mount Misery trails and things like that, so.
Jay?
So would it be worth approaching them to see if they actually want to put one out there rather than, because I know it failed last year. Failed, I think 2 years ago too, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I believe you're correct.
I think that would be the polite thing to do.
Yeah.
What, to approach and ask them
To
if
ask
they
them
want
if
to
they
take it
want
off?
Ask them if
So
they
then if
want
they
it.
say
Yeah.
they don't want it, then we can just remove it completely? Is that how that works? Is there a
Right.
legal
But the library
process?
decided to do that this year, so.
Yeah.
You'd have to have the 2 selectmen agree to that voted yes.
Because it's already been presented to the board.
And now we only have 1.
Should we
Yeah.
just,
And
We
after
have
this
one.
vote, that might.
yeah,
The other person is now resigned, so we
Right.
have 1 person,
so should
that
we
1
just vote?
selectman. And if he was to say, yeah, the budget committee's gonna turn this thing down or not recommend it, maybe he could change his vote.
Let me try this. What if we made a motion that we ask the Board of Selectmen to go back, get input, if possible, from the rec committee, and reconsider whether or not this article should be moved
Be on it
forward?
at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or a consent, I don't know if we need a
We
warrant.
can do a consent. I mean, you can go
consensus
back
for
to the
that.
board and tell them that?
That would be a
Or are we
different
running out of
motion.
time? We gotta kind of,
We're running out of time.
yeah.
I would suggest, go
Just
ahead
vote.
and vote for it, and then let the cards
Yeah, Jay.
lie.
Well, it's going to be, I think it's going to just send a confusing message because this committee's going to probably vote it down. And the selectmen
But that
have
would be good.
not
because
recommended it,
If they
but-
don't recommend it, and then you bring it back to the Board of Selectmen or man that did not vote for this, I think he might say, all right, I'll change my vote to no, and then we could take it off.
You'll remove it.
So, yeah,
Okay.
go ahead
Yeah,
and
that's a
not
good,
do it.
okay.
My only thing is.
It's gonna go back to
If
them.
they had an idea
Yeah.
here and we didn't know about,
Right.
that's the only
Yeah.
thing I'm afraid.
'Cause
that
I'm gonna
we're
vote
setting
no,
a
too.
precedent. That's
Because you were one of the.
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, so all those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Abstain, so.
I'm going to abstain based
Oh,
on.
okay.
and-
To abstain?
Yeah, just not knowing if there is, they have an idea here and we don't know it, I don't think
So
it's,
it's
So 072.
Okay.
I mean, I think where we are so close to the wire, we should
I
just
hear you.
take a vote and then backtrack if we have to.
Yep.
Okay, capital reserve fund for transportation. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve, to recommend the capital reserve fund deposit for transportation.
Second? I'll second it. Discussion?
You have a balance? Does anyone know
I
a
don't-
balance?
Do we have a balance, Greg?
Approximately between 30 and 35,000.
Thank you.
Do we know if we took anything out of it last year for any,
Yeah, we took the $47,000 out of it for the Pollard
for the,
Road.
okay,
So that
So it
35
did
is
have-
obviously after the 47?
that's what I'm saying,
Yes.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we had over 75. Is there any more discussion? Yeah, Dennis?
So this allows us to have money in there for grants as we did in that previous warrant article, essentially. Okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of recommending the warrant article for transportation, say aye. Opposed? So, 2, or 3?
Three.
3. 6, 0. Create transfer to Information Technology Fund, the amount of $15,000. Is there a motion to recommend this warrant article?
I'll make a motion to recommend the Article P 2015 in the amount of $15,000.
Is there a second? Greg, second. Discussion? My only question is, I'm not an IT person, I don't know a whole lot about software and that sort of thing, but is that something that could be budgeted for in the executive? Like, if you know you have a license expiring on Microsoft Word or whatever the case?
That would be a normal office expense. This would be like if we were gonna do a major,
Server replacement or,
well, but in terms
New
of
computers.
applications, it would be like if we were gonna implement a new registration system.
Is that what software applications
a
is?
big
Okay, I was
software
thinking
application,
software, like,
Not like a little.
computer
something you can
software.
Install it yourself. right.
okay, I wasn't sure what
And
the,
as Jay is saying, the service of what keeps
Mm-hmm.
the computers running in the town.
okay.
All the revenue that we get from the town clerk, when her server goes down, it's a bad scene.
Did we recently replace a server?
I think I think we had to.
Yeah.
At least,
Do you know, have we replaced the server recently?
Yeah, so I want to say 18, I can be corrected if it was 18. What happened is we had a catastrophic failure of our system. We were told that the one server we had that serviced the town hall and the public safety complex was, it was
Kinda
already
died.
legacy equipment, we didn't have replacement parts, we were in a doom and gloom, and so it wasn't in the budget. So what I did is, we went out and got a price for a server, and I brought it to the board, and the only thing that we could do at that time, and I think, Mr. Bracci, you were on the board then, was look into a lease program, a lease purchase, so that we could finance it over a long period of time and work that into the next budget, because the severity of losing that system was going to be really catastrophic, because we didn't have a backup, we didn't have redundancy. So they voted in the affirmative, and we signed a lease and a contract, and, that was the first server. So since that time, we have improved on that. one of the things that happened was the building of the safety complex, and I looked at their needs, and I looked at the legal requirements to separate out sensitive areas, which you have two there. You have police that's regulated by the state police and the federal government because of the sensitivity of the police information. And then you have the one for the fire, which deals with the HEPA and their things. So we now have 3 servers, and we have redundancy to some extent. We'd like to have better redundancy, but we're working with our IT provider to look at all of those issues. So the answer is, we did have to replace it, and now we're in a better position now than we were, say, 2 years ago when this was brought to my attention. So this, if I can speak for a second on this, so the intent of this is to not be placed in this type of position before. And the important thing I want you to understand is that, you know, people can easily take it for granted. Most of the staff on any given day that has an office and has a desk and has a desktop, if the computer isn't working, that's how they do their work. They're not doing it with pencils and papers. So there's emails, there's phone calls, there's word processing, there's documents, and so forth. So what is the lost time that you have with the computers going down? So what we've been working on is a robust plan to make sure that our system is robust enough that we don't have people sitting there that can't do their work. And I'll give you a big example of how you don't want this to happen. It's one thing for an office, but it's been brought up about the town clerk with registrations. But if we have contract people that are working in assessing, and their hours, they put in X amount of hours, and they come in at 8 o'clock, and the computer server is down for their module, and they're there, and they're willing, ready, and able to do work, and they need access to the computer, and they're down for 3 hours, you're paying for 3 hours for somebody to sit there and look at a blank screen. That's the type of thing we're trying to avoid by having a robust computer system. So we need to think about capital planning, and that's why we're looking at creating an account so that we're not put behind the 8 ball. We're not asking for a lot of money, but we're asking for something so that we can start saving for that. But as far as the licensing goes, we've asked our contractor to provide us with advance notice on everything that we need so that we can budget for it. In the past, it was kind of like, oh, I wish we knew about that sooner, where we're going to get the money from. And we're trying to get away from that.
Is there a life expectancy on the server and
Sure.
that kind of stuff?
Sure. I don't know what that is off the top of my head. I know that there's 2 people here, but there's...
3 to 5 years.
So the lease would like renew? We have a lease right now
Yeah,
for the server.
lease purchase for 3 years, so, you know, there'll be some time left on that, and we purchase it for $1, and, you know, we're all done making payments and so forth, and then that's the type of thing that we need to look at, so.
It's not like a car, you can't trade it in for a newer model.
Oh, it's actually it's outdated so
Yeah.
much from the technology that no one wants to buy it.
And then
So-
replacement parts for some of these
You
things.
you add
yeah.
50 feet and you have a good boat anchor.
So is it out of commission after we pay it off?
No.
No,
No,
okay.
no, it's got some life left in it. You know, it's kind of like the copier like we have over in the corner. So that was one that we came off lease and we owned it and for $1, and we put it over there, and it's going to be over there working until it stops working, and then we'll get rid of it, you know. But as long as it works, we're going to keep it in the
Okay.
corner over there, you know. But, so we don't throw anything away, but everything has a life expectancy, even us.
Yeah.
Greg, maybe you can speak to this, or Mark. The title, create/transfer to information. Are we transferring from what was it, an old account to another account, or?
To my understanding, that means that we're creating the fund and we're putting money into it.
Brand new.
See, it's
I see that it says
Establish
create.
Information fund, so that's the create
Right, but the
part.
title says create/transfer to information. I'm just a little confused by the title, that's all.
Might just need to be updated.
It's really create the information technology fund and transfer $15,000 into it. That's what it really is.
Okay,
I
the
didn't
wording
create-
just,
I didn't create the titles.
that's
It,
all right.
it just seems confusing. It's a little confusing.
It is a little bit.
I thought maybe it meant you were transferring from an old account or something.
No.
You could change it to deposit, transfer to deposit to be consistent with the others if you'd like.
Yeah,
No,
that'd
I'm-
be good.
Just wanted an explanation, that's all.
Okay, any more discussion on the information technology? No. All those in favor of recommending the information? Fund?
Aye.
Opposed? So 4-5-0. Okay, funding for permits to recap and close the Plaistow landfill. Is there a motion?
The vote
Or-
by the select board was 3-0-0.
Oh, okay, that's not on there.
That was last night.
Is there a motion on the floor to recommend it?
I'll make a motion that we recommend the funding for permits to recap. And the word close should actually go, it's really fix the cap of the Plaistow landfill.
So recap and fix the Plaistow? Okay.
It's fix the cap of the.
That's what it says on the explanation.
Yeah,
But the-
we
Oh, on the
actually
top, it
have
does.
the landfill capped, and it is
Failing.
falling down, and it's also pooling water.
Yep. Is there a second so we can talk for discussion? Does anyone, Jay,
Sure, I'll second it.
discussion?
Can we
So-
just put some dirt on it and fill in the hole?
No.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna oppose that, because technically, yes, when I listened to the engineer who was here, the last Board of Selectmen meeting, and what, if you extrapolate everything he said, if that landfill was capped using a non-membrane, not a barrier, big plastic bag, if you will. So there's two ways that they were done in the 80s. One way was they have a special wrapper they put over it, then they put dirt over it. The other way was you put several feet of impervious clay soils on top and they compact it, which keeps water from going through it. So if they dig a test hole and find that that's what it is, then we're gonna end up paying $500,000 to fill the depression in the top of a dump with another few feet of soil, when all's said and done. My opinion. I know it has to be permitted, I know you can't just go up there with a dump truck and fill the hole like you'd like to, but the long and short of it is that if we find that that wasn't capped in that way, basically that's what's gonna end up happening. He's gonna be fixing a very, very expensive pothole.
But there's no way of knowing until,
You can't just go up there and dig a test hole and see. It's unfortunate.
Bob?
This warrant article is to fund the design, engineering, and permitting of this. And based on what I heard last night, it's not going to cover all the costs, it's going to be higher than that. And then we have to turn around and fix it,
Right.
based on whatever they recommend. It does not make a whole lot of sense to me to do something like this until we're required to do it, or we just do what we've been doing in the past, which is basically what I believe Sam is saying. Fill in the holes,
Can't do that.
improve
Oh,
the
no, I
drainage.
didn't say that.
DES
I know
will
you,
not allow you
I know
to
you
do
can't
that.
do that.
Okay,
So you're getting some bad,
No.
take that as advice.
That's why I said I know you
Making
can't
a
do that.
statement.
I know you can't do
DES
that.
will not allow you to do that.
well, it just seems awfully expensive to ask voters for $150,000 to do the design and tell us what we need to do, and then still have to ask them for more money
It's-
to actually do the job.
Okay, so it's not just to tell us what to do. It's primarily to
Permitting.
get the permits which are very,
Right.
very expensive.
Right,
Second thing is, if we don't do this, DES can turn around and say, you will do this. So if we wait a year, not only the price to get the permits will go up, but also the cost to actually do the work will go up. So we had a discussion at the Board of Selectmen about, well, what if we just had somebody haul all the stuff out of the hole to someplace else?
we watched.
So you saw it.
a lot of
I don't know if everybody did. We were talking about in the millions of dollars, and the problem is, there may not be any places where you can actually truck it to. There's a couple of places, Rochester and one, is it Bethlehem? Bethlehem. They're running out of space as well. So it would be a much, much more expensive thing. It would be nice We can get all the garbage out and just turn that back into land and to be able to reuse, but I don't know if we can afford it.
Greg, are you telling me that DES has already come down and said we gotta do something?
No,
Or
I
are we
didn't say
saying that?
I
We could.
never said that. I never
Could.
said that.
So,
Pete.
if nobody has said that,
Yeah,
why are we doing something? Until DES comes down here and says, do something, we don't even know if it's bad now, do we?
we still have to do this. I mean, whether we do this now or whether we do it later. We
Who
can do
said
it
that?
now at this cost, or we can do it at a higher cost.
Who said that we had to do that?
Who
Who
said
says
what?
that we have to do that?
If DES comes down and says you got to fix your landfill, yes, we will have to
If they
do
come
it.
down, and if there's a problem, then we will have to do something.
We already have a problem.
There is a problem.
There is a problem right now.
Who said that?
The engineer.
The DES regulations.
There is a problem right now.
We budget money every year to maintain the cap on the landfill. What are we doing with that money? We budget it every year.
Every year.
So we've been maintaining it ongoing.
So there's a requirement with post-closure to have monitoring wells and to have methane gas events and to file reports on the status of the closure. So those engineering fees, as I understand it, when we recently talked about it, they've started to go down a little bit because they're not testing some of the areas as often because they don't have a reason to test it more often. So that's the purpose of testing the wells, is to find out if things are migrating or they're not migrating. So, listen, you got to look at the big picture. The big picture is that was closed over 30 years ago, and that was open for a long time, and it is it's active underneath the cap. It is settling. It's what happens with landfills. So this is not a problem that happened overnight. This happened over the last 30 years. There was no plan in place. In a perfect world, you would have anticipated this a number of years ago. You would have put money aside so you wouldn't have to come up with this much money now because it would be in a capital reserve fund. But you didn't create a capital reserve fund for something that you knew was going to happen.
To go back to my original question, we budget every year to maintain that cap. Why all of a sudden are we now finding that we got to hire somebody else to come in, spend all of this money, $150,000, and I heard last night, that's just the beginning of it. More money's going to be thrown in for this engineering and permitting and design, and then we're going to have to pay to fix it, whatever they come
Well,
up with.
the answer
I
is,
just don't-
it's two separate issues. The settling is different than the monitoring of the cap.
Well, what do they monitor if they don't
Well,
monitor the
that's a
settlement?
technical question, and that's not, there's a lot of moving parts here.
I understand.
Not only that, Bob, but the figure to do that maintenance that you're talking about is in two different lines in the solid waste, and it's doubled over the last 2 years. It's gone from, not quite doubled, 53,000 in 19 we budgeted. In 2018, we budgeted 26, and it's 78. We went, on those two lines, and those two lines have doubled. They've gone from 6,500 and 6,000 to 30,000 and 35,000. So not only are we asking for a warrant article for 150,000, we've also doubled two lines.
In the budget.
Landfill engineering, 2018 actual was $6,259 was budgeted. The actual, for 18. 30,000 in 19. Landfill, quote-unquote, groundskeeping was $6,000 in 2018. 10,000 was budgeted in 19. The request is for 35,000 in 20. So I agree with you. We're putting aside even more money here, plus asking for another 150.
That's what doesn't make any sense.
Right,
to
I
me.
understand.
Just to clarify, the gentleman that came here to give the report was being paid out of that for
Yes.
that purpose. So that's why you see that increase, is because they don't work for free. So that's where the engineering fees were coming from in there, in the budget.
So we're paying an engineer to come here and tell us that we need to pay him $225,000. What I heard last night, we're only asking for $150,000 this year, to do more design work, engineering, and permitting.
So preliminary.
Then have to pay to do
So
the work.
the number that he had on the information he presented to the board was an approximate cost for the different phases. I think it was phase 1 through 6. He was already on phase 1, and I think we were talking about phase 2 through 5. And when you added up the phases, and I did the math, it was 200,000 for what I was looking at. So I actually rolled it back to 150 and said, since they're approximate costs, let's not go with the full value of his approximate costs. Let's reduce it down because it's phases. So let's see where we can go with 150, and then let's see what's in front of us after 150. Maybe it won't be 200, maybe it will be 150.
And it was two different engineering firms, correct? One working for or with the other?
Yes, yes. So Normando is our engineers of the site for the post-closure, for the monitoring that they do, and they have to do it so many times a year. And I was told that they're not doing it as often and as much. But they're not the experts at the closure, the cap. So that's why they referred us to Sanborn Head and Eric Steinhauser. And then I asked, give me a comprehensive outlook of what it would cost to engineer, design, and permit this. And then you have to have specifications to put out for a bid. That's what this document, that's what those funds would do, is it would quantify the area and what cap is there, what amount of material needs to go back in there, how it's all gonna fit together with the rolling topography, where is the water gonna go, because it's gonna roll off, what's the water quality gonna be as it goes off-site, because that's the issue. And it would eliminate the ponding. So it's not a simple thing.
No, I know it's not. And it sounded like they were using yet another firm. Because I remember him specifying, I'm not the expert in such and such of thing. It sounded like now there's three firms involved.
Right, and we had a meeting today about clean water and MS4. And, it's a good thing when you have 4 engineering firms in the room looking at your specifications to bid on.
Unless you're paying for them.
So, well, no, we didn't pay for them at all today, because there's a pre-bid meeting for them to understand what it is we want, and they're gonna bid on it, so.
That was for the cap today?
No, that wasn't for the
Oh,
cap,
okay.
that was for the,
For the MS4?
for the MS4, the asset management that we're doing, that we put in, and received that grant for $30,000. So, I don't worry about having, one company and another company that specializes in it. I look at it this way: you want the most experienced people doing the work for you. You don't want to be paying them to learn how to do the work.
Right. From a layman's term, it just sounds expensive when one guy's calling, another guy calls another guy.
No, it's like getting referred from your primary care doctor to a specialist. That's all.
Jenna?
So if nothing is done, is there a possibility that you could face fines, or what's the possibility if you do
I
nothing?
would say that the next step, that once they decide to come down to enforce the fact that we're not maintaining a cap, which, it's not that we've done something wrong. It's
Right.
deteriorated over time.
Yep,
And
yep.
it was put in place 33 or 34 years ago. So nobody's done anything wrong.
Right.
It happens.
Yep.
I see them forcing us to do something to address a fix, and then if we were resistant, I see them coming in to force us to a consent agreement to make us do it, which they have the jurisdiction to do. So, this is called proactive versus reactive. We spread it out this way by asking for some funds to quantify what it is we want to do, and then go out and get some prices. We spread it out over years, and it's not a major cost all at once. And every year, we know the price of everything usually goes up. So it costs a lot more down the road, and it's not going to go away. I call landfills a perpetual.
Liability and perpetuity.
It's a perpetual liability. It will not go away.
Will this make it more permanent, like a more permanent fix?
Well, the last time they closed it, It lasted for the better part of 30 years. I don't know how many years ago that the cap settled to and caused the ponding, but let's just say it was, we know it was 33 years ago they capped it. So it's been, I wasn't aware of what happened 10 years ago, but it's been, say, 20-something years. But ground settled. Now, what Eric Steinhauser said is that a lot of settling happens at the beginning and not so much as time goes on. But, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, people could be sitting in the same room here saying, you know what, it settled again, we got ponding, we have to fix it again. So it settles. It's, if you've ever buried stumps, had seen stumps, buried in somebody's yard, and then 5 years later, you see the sinkhole because it settles.
They rot and they go.
They rot and it settles.
I have a question then. Is there anything you can do to make that landfill actually usable, not for a landfill, but like we were talking about the
Right.
solar array? What would it take to do
So
that?
that's a loaded question, but I'll keep it brief. Landfills are considered brownfields. I know you probably haven't heard that term before, but brownfields are sites that are landfills. I've had experience with other communities with brownfields. They have some EPA grants for brownfields and to make them usable. But I haven't seen a lot of success at building like ball fields and recreational fields on top of them. It's a tough thing. I know there's probably somebody that's done something on top of a landfill, but it's complicated.
School.
High school.
Yeah, the high school.
Well, I asked about that. No one's really told me for sure. I mean, it's been kind of folklore that there was something that happened over there, but I don't think I don't think it's one of those demarked, landfills. I mean, people could have dumped stuff there, but I don't think it was a municipal landfill.
So I guess this is just gonna fix it to the point where it's not causing an issue, but it's still land that we can't really do anything with.
Well, there is interest from people for those solar panels to use a site like this with something that they put on top,
That's
and it
what
does not interfere with the cap.
As long as this is done right.
Correct.
Bob and then Dennis, because Bob has.
There's still a lot of towns in New Hampshire that still have active landfills. I
don't
believe
know that.
Salem,
No.
no? What do you do with your trash?
Goes to a transfer station and it's hauled out of town.
Okay,
There's no trash pickup in Salem.
okay. But we were proactive 30 years ago and closed our landfill and did it properly at that time. There has to be other towns that aren't maintaining their cap the way that we have annually and budgeted for. Other towns have to be in much worse shape than we are as far as that closed landfill that we have. Are there any other towns that have been required by the EPA or DES to do something? Like you're
know.
saying that they have the authority to do that. Have they done that to other towns in New Hampshire?
I'm only focused on Plaistow.
I know, but if we're spending all of this money for something that they don't even have the authority to do, I mean, we were told that DES would come down and Department of Revenue would come down and tell us we had to do a statistical update if our things were out of balance, which was untrue.
Let's just move on. Dennis had his hand up.
Okay.
Yep.
So 150,000, let's say it's 200,000. We're spending, what was that figure, Sam, in the budget per year to maintain this?
Well,
So,
the two lines equal 65.
so let's say it stays at 65 or even go 50. So if we get this done in a year, we will no longer have to spend out of those lines, correct? That budget goes away?
No.
No, there'll still be
You still need to,
there'll be some.
you still have to do maintenance?
There'll be some monitoring.
Okay.
It's monitoring reports,
It's a permitted facility that
requires
pay an
monitoring.
engineer to do I don't know how annually, so often,
They're
they
doing it less often now.
they
but
do an
yes.
inspection and they send a report to DES.
Would it be less money? if we did
Eventually,
this?
They're gonna send in the report of the pond, and it's gonna, something may or may not happen.
The monitoring is different than the ponding. The monitoring is that they're monitoring the wells and they're monitoring the methane, and over time, it becomes less. So, and if there's nothing migrating off-site, because that's why they have the monitoring wells. So those are good to have, because then you know if somebody down the road claims, oh, you're polluting my well, and you have monitoring to show that it's not.
And if I may, the reason the pond is an issue is because in theory, if the membrane, whether it be clay or an actual rubber membrane, fails and the pond water goes through the dump, now it's gonna leach everything that's in the dump into the groundwater, because our dump is not lined under it, only on top of it. It's like throwing a bag on top of a pile of garbage.
Yeah.
So that's the issue, and that's why they monitor the water around the well in the ground to see if anything's going through and getting out.
Okay.
What I heard from that engineer who was here at your last meeting was, we're not alone at all. It is very, very common. That's what dumps do. They settle. It's not unique to us.
Okay. Any more discussion? No? Call for a vote. All those in favor of,
What was the selectman vote?
it was 3-0-0.
300.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? So 3-6-0. And the other warrant articles, we don't have anything. It's not non-monetary. Okay.
Have there been any petition warrant articles that we know of?
Yeah, there's the two, well, no, there's just the Rockingham per capita one. That's the only one I know of, right?
The SOROC,
The SOROC, I'm sorry.
yeah. And I think you've already got the one for elderly and disabled there.
Yeah,
So those were the only two.
and they're not monetary, so we can't,
Correct.
I don't have any committee reports. Under new business, I just know that there's 3 seats up for election. Lisa's,
On this committee?
yeah, on this committee. Lisa's.
Terms that are expiring?
Yeah, terms that are expiring. Lisa, Jay, and Bob, I think. So I just wanted to put that out there, that those 3 seats were gonna be on the ballot. Anybody else have any new business?
Pete has his hand up.
And we got a list of
Yep.
the things that the Board of Selectmen encumbered. And all of these items have a signed contract that goes along with them. Is that correct?
Signed contract and/or purchase order, yes.
Please, good.
And/or purchase order.
Signed contract and/or purchase order that's been approved.
Okay.
Any other new business or, yeah, Jay? No? Okay. All right. I will adjourn the meeting. No, wait, Pete, sorry.
To ask another question on that, when you have a contract like for tree removal, are you saying that we have a contract that says we're going to cut down a couple of trees in 2020? Is that a contract?
I've got proposals and signed contracts, yes.
So we sign a contract in 2019 using that money to do maybe something, a contingency in 2020.
No, it's not to do maybe something. There are specifics to the contract with the work that's going to be done, and it could not get done either because of weather or, commitments by the companies to do it could not get it done by the end of the year.
Yep.
So these companies have committed to the work, and we've committed to the price.
Yes,
It's locked in.
It just overlaps the
Yeah.
year.
yeah.
What's the last column?
That's
The
the
dates?
company, or,
No, the dates?
The date of the contract that was signed or the purchase order that was approved.
Okay, thank you.
That was what was requested.
yes, thank you. Anything else? No. Okay, I will adjourn the meeting at 9:02. Thank you.